Amazon has always made mistakes when it comes to renewals, whether that be giving Rings of Power a second season, or Wheel of Time a third one before they've even shown the second. The thing is, there's a difference between renewing something because you think the next one will be better and you can fix it, and engaging in the absolutely absurd behaviour that they did with things like The Peripheral, or A League of Their Own. These weren't renewed because they thought they could make them a success. They weren't renewed for business purposes. No, these were renewed seemingly to save face for the executives at Amazon. And when the CEO of your company comes knocking at your door demanding to know why you're spending so much money and getting absolute trash for it, turns out your ego and desire to rub elbows with the rich and famous, it's just not worth the hundreds of millions of dollars that was being spent on it.
Is that a question?
Because I find it very difficult to believe that these two things weren't related when the CEO is asking them to explain their big spending on the 5th of July. And then just over a month later, it turns out, oh yeah, we're getting rid of them all, by the way. And those two examples are particularly public ones. Rings of Power, Wheel of Time, nobody really knows why they were renewed. I mean, they shouldn't have been. We know that only 37% of viewers finished Rings of Power. And so even if you release a second series, you've already lost the majority of your audience base. And so it's difficult to see how a series that expensive could ever be financially viable. But when it comes down to The Peripheral and A League of Their Own, it was never about whether they were financially viable in the first place. And for that, we can thank The Hollywood Reporter, who still produced one of the best articles I've ever read. It's basically an incredibly long look behind the scenes at all Amazon, how they actually go through and renew things, what are the problems with it, why they're not seen particularly well in the entertainment industry in Hollywood. They don't have the prestige of other companies, and so they feel like they've got to spend more just to win anyone over. And when people do come and work for them, it's like working for a tech company, where only the top executives have offices. The vast majority have to contend with agile seating, where you just have an unassigned cubby in a designated neighborhood. You can understand why the egos in Hollywood want to get paid more to deal with that. But that's why getting huge IPs and mega rewards is what Amazon Prime is after. They want that prestige to attract people to them. They want to be taken seriously. So anything that harms the PR or the prestige of their studio, definitely something they wanted to avoid, which may explain how they acted with regards to The Peripheral in the first place. Because The Peripheral was massively expensive at $175 million for just 8 episodes, and came from Jonah Nolan and Lisa Joy. And that makes this series more expensive than the season of Westworld that they made, and yet sources have said that they had a lukewarm audience engagement. It probably should have been cancelled, says an insider, and now it has. But only after the CEO started investigating their finances. Strange that. But they didn't renew it for any reason of money or the thought that they could actually make it successful. No, they made a mega deal, and the political capital they would lose with Lisa and Jonah would be too great, and they have other shows coming. It had nothing to do with the audience reception, whether it was financially viable, or anything to do with actual business. No, instead, this was simply about people's feelings and emotions, and whether they might not like me or not.
I made sure no genius on genius homicide happened.
What if they go into the cafeteria and start talking to Susan about how I haven't paid them enough money? We can't do that, we're Amazon. It's a very mean girl sort of attitude to have, and it has no place in business. And yet, despite not wanting to offend them because they were making another show, which was also extremely expensive, their deal with Nolan has been described as one of the worst examples of Sulky's mantra that Amazon is a home for talent, as their deal has been worth at least $20 million a year since they signed, which, considering so was Phoebe Waller-Bridge's deal, also got $20 million a year and bore no fruit. This is a standard part of Amazon practice. We're going to give you tens of millions of dollars a year just to look at your stuff, and even if it's trash, we might renew it because we don't want to offend you. Anybody in your company thinks that's a reasonable thing to do, they shouldn't have any power to make decisions. And yet here we are with Jennifer Sulky, seemingly doing it regularly. They complained that their company ceded decisions to powerful producers while they hold the line on other producers who do great work. Nolan and Joy declined to comment. Of course they did. They're getting paid $20 million a year and getting seasons renewed that should have been cancelled. I'd shut my gob as well. Otherwise, you end up like Rachel Ziegler.
She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be. I cried my eyes out. When am I not crying? Weird.
So after such a monetary mess, I can understand why a CEO coming in and asking you to explain the spending would be incensed at what you did. Why have we renewed this absolute failure for another $200 million and keep paying them $200 million a year and are actually rewarding them with another series? Well, I didn't want them to think that I was being mean. Right. Yeah, I think we could save the $250,000 on that. Thank you very much.
They'll never know what you sacrificed for them.
And it's not unusual for Amazon to make those kind of monetary wastes. Sulky was also involved in purchasing the Nike movie Air for $160 million, which an executive at one of their competitors called crazy, and Matt made more money on Air than any other movie but Bourne. She just took it off the table for $160 million. It made almost $90 million at the box office in total worldwide. That's a $70 million loss even if you don't count the cinema's money and the marketing. So once again, can understand why the CEO may be a little bit concerned about their big spending.
Another case of a man taking credit for a woman's work.
But the spending isn't even the worst part of it. Imagine you're running an entertainment company that has to sell things to an audience. Wouldn't you think that audience matters? Wouldn't you think their opinion would matter? Their tastes would matter? Don't you think you'd listen to them? If the audience is telling you, I don't want this is trash, maybe stop doing it, that's all I'm saying. One of the ways you would find out this objective information would be to ask them and make data-led decisions, something Amazon is incredible at. They run an entire retail business where data drives their decisions. Everything is tested, split-tested, they control the variables and make the best decision at every point. You could run an entertainment company like that. They don't. They tried, though. For the story of this, we go back to A League of Their Own, something that was originally renewed for a second and final season. The first season consisted of 8 episodes, the second, only 4. Bit strange right from the start. Yeah, we'll give you an ending, but we're gonna give you a small an ending as we think we can reasonably get away with. At the time, the creators were talking more about, we love making this show and the impacts that it has on the world. Well, obviously we're hoping for 11 seasons. We're grateful to be able to continue to tell the stories of these characters and the world, because that will have an impact. Not a mention of the audience or how much they enjoyed it. All we want to do is make people relax when they get home and entertain them. No, it was about the impacts that we can have on the world. Everyone's seen language like that before.
There was a lot of eating. There was a lot of food.
But it's still surprising when season 2 got cancelled when you find out why it got renewed in the first place. Because of League of Their Own was one of the standout expensive disappointments of the entire Sulky era. It cost around $90 million for 8 episodes and included a premium that they had to pay Sony for some rights. Now, there is an interesting comment from an insider who is annoyed that Amazon's saying they're a home for talent, but really just pursue more middle-of-the-road meat and potato shows like Jack Reacher. Read good shows that the audience actually wants. Yes, we're annoyed at shows like Jack Reacher, which are successful. Why couldn't you make more massive losses like A League of Their Own for us? I just don't understand. Because unironically, that was genuinely their plan. That's what they were going to do. They used to heavily rely on feedback from focus groups, which tended to favour broad and less inclusive programming. You know, those meat and potato shows like Jack Reacher. People don't want to be preached to, they just want to be entertained when they've come home from work and paid you for a subscription service. This is a new concept for some of the people at Amazon who want to push the boundaries and educate people. There are those that think the audience should be challenged, have the boundaries of their beliefs pushed in a new, more modern direction.
It's yummy and it feels really delicious in my heart.
That's why these focus groups were deemed to be a problem. When your job is to serve an audience and you find out what they want, it's not what Hollywood wants to provide. So what do you do with cognitive dissonance if you want to do something but you have objective data proving you wrong? Well, you could just start insulting them. That's a plan. I'm not even joking. Several Amazon insiders said that the reliance on testing and data led to a clash late last summer. Look, don't you come in here with all your facts and information. We don't want that. I don't care if you can prove how we can make Amazon Prime Video a success. I'll convert those bigots one episode at a time. $100 million loss after another.
It's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
The data showed that audiences found queer stories off-putting and suggested downplaying those themes in materials promoting the show. Pretty common sense that if the high 90s of the entire world is one way, and you're making an audience for a very niche part of the population, then the majority of the population just won't see what all the fuss is about. It's a case of, why would I watch that? It's clearly not made for me. But despite the fact that this was literally the opinion of their audience, who have the money that they want, the co-creator, Will Graham, became greatly concerned that this had bias built into Amazon systems for evaluating shows. Yes, that bias of asking your audience what they prefer and then telling you. It actually doesn't matter what bias your audience has, because whatever it is, that's still what you're supposed to provide them. It's not your job to make what you want. If you want their money, you make a show for them, whether you agree with what they want or not.
You do not get to choose.
It's my show.
Not for Will Graham, though. Apparently, multiple sources said that often ranked broad series featuring straight white male leads above the others. I guess like your meat and potato shows like Jack Reacher. You know, the financially successful ones. It's almost like when you follow the data of what your audience wants, your audience watches it. Bizarre. That bizarre. Who would have thought engaging in successful business practices that goes back thousands of years would actually be successful? I thought everything from the past was was useless and we've got to reinvent everything every single day.
The cartoon was made 85 years ago, therefore it's extremely dated.
And so despite the fact that we knew objectively what the audience wanted, had them proven successes when we made them, apparently it was a problem what the audience actually preferred, and so they started to complain that A League of Their Own was a proxy of how inclusive shows are treated. Your show isn't financially successful, we're cancelling it. You can't do that! Have you not seen what I do in the privacy of my own home? You can't cancel my show because of that.
We're the victims. Feel bad for us. That's what that is.
It's a strange argument, but it's one that carries weight when you're Amazon and don't want bad PR for a studio which already lacks prestige. If you're somebody who really cares about feelings rather than business. And that's the only conclusion I can make about Jennifer Sulkey when I find out she renewed The Peripheral because she was scared about losing political capital with Nolan and Joy. Then that is just summarised as, you didn't want to hurt their feelings. Notice how the actual businessman coming in, the numbers guy who cares about business, suddenly didn't have that issue.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't care.
I don't care what you think about this decision. You lost me money. Bye. That's why I'm a big fan of Money Men. They make data-driven, objective decisions, and those will always be better for the audience, because you make more money when you give the audience a good experience and make what they want. The more you entertain the audience, the more money they're going to give you. This isn't hard, folks. And you get there via objective data, something that the insiders at Amazon aren't really happy with. Relying on data is soul-crushing. There's never, I know the testing wasn't that great, but I believe in this. What you've done there, mate, is made an argument based on faith. I know the audience have told me this is trash, but if you just trust me and give me millions of dollars, then it might be a success. I believe it will. I don't care about your delusional feelings, mate. The audience told you they didn't want your show. Change it. Should be the answer to that. Not for Graham, though. When the co-creator found out that the focus groups didn't like his show and found it off-putting, notice the focus groups didn't say it shouldn't be made. They just said they found the stories off-putting and suggested downplaying those themes in the promotional material. But no, Graham decided to launch an interrogation of the system, questioning multiple executives. Amazon took this issue seriously and dropped the system of ranking shows based on audience scores. One guy complained simply because he thought bias was built into the system based off what the audience objectively wanted, and because it wasn't what he wanted in his shows, he managed to make the entire company not care about audience scores. There goes your data, your objectivity, your chance at ever making a profit on your entire studio. We're not going to listen to the audience. We don't care about those. No, let's listen to Graham instead, the guy who makes financial failures for a living. It's like finding out Ferrari are getting rid of their engineers who made all their previous cars to instead listen to Dave, whose only qualification is driving his previous car off a cliff. Rumour has it that the majority of the audiences don't drive their cars off cliffs, but that's the only qualification Dave's got, so gosh darn it, is he gonna focus on that?
Did you take a stupid pill with your breakfast this morning, Admiral?
And not only did this interrogation of the system get Amazon to not stop carrying out audience scores, it also got them to agree to a 4-episode second and final season. That's why it got renewed. That's why he was so interested in the impact that it would have on the world. Who wouldn't be, after you've essentially got them to renew your series they were going to cancel? Because it sounds like inside the company, you're basically calling them all bigots. And so what do people do in that scenario? Oh no, we're not! And so to prove it to you, I'm going to give you a shed load of cash. I tell you, it's like the Amazon version of Anita Sarkeesian.
We will not allow you to take away our dignity!
And so with those stories, put yourself in the CEO's position. You're having to tighten your belt as all the economy is changing, and you need to know where this money is going. Why are you renewing these incredibly expensive seasons in The Peripheral and A League of Their Own? Shows with barely any name recognition. I mean, look, Rings of Power may have only had 37% of their audience get to the end, but at least Lord of the Rings is a massive IP. That's a prestige IP just to have in the first place. The Wheel of Time is also a massive fantasy series, so you could at least claim there's a built-in fanbase for it, assuming you'd made it not trash. But you don't have that for the other shows. You know, The Peripheral, where you didn't cancel it because you were scared of hurting some people's feelings. Or A League of Their Own, which you had objective data that your audience didn't want, but were just scared of what? A Twitter storm about it being diverse and inclusive when you cancelled it, which is indeed what they would have got, because we've already seen that happen with things like Willow, where not only did it blow up on Twitter, but Pink News actually called cancelling it a crime against their community.
Go ahead, kid. Fetch me some brine possum butter. Sprinkle it on my bum and make my gentle winds smell like cinnamon.
Willow was axed after one season, leaving fans mourning the loss of representation. I should know, I was one of them. I mourned the loss of Willow as well. Looking at their behind the scenes is still one of my favourite videos I've ever made. I'm so sad that show's gone. It really was like a goldmine of entertainment. But you're the CEO looking to explain its spending, as the company is now spending $7 billion on original shows, up from $5 billion the year before. And while everyone's going, no, this was an amazing success, it was a huge success, but we're not going to give you any numbers to prove it, we're just going to talk about the premiere every time. Well, we drop 3 episodes of Wheel of Time on one day, because that'll get us a lot of minutes on the Nielsen ratings. Now, maybe it's just me, but if I was a CEO looking to save costs, and I found out that you renewed The Peripheral for $175 million because you didn't want to offend people's feelings, I'd just fire you right there. To me, that just immediately comes under gross negligence. But I don't know the legal ramifications of that. It's just the language I'd use for making such an insane business decision. Something it seems Jennifer Sulky specialises in. And that's why caring about the prestige of your studio is stupid. Whenever you cancel things, the show's creators and everyone are going to come out. But it's fine, because you can point to him and go, well, he's just annoyed that I cancelled his series. Doesn't matter what he accuses us of, because it's always going to have to end. And when it is, the people who are going to make money out of it now are really annoyed. To blame this cancellation on the strike, which is essentially a fight for fair wages and protections, is BS and cowardly. But this show has been repeatedly put through the ringer because it had no business reason to exist in the first place, and so the only way to get it renewed was essentially emotional manipulation. That's a nice studio you've got there. Be a shame if someone called you a bigot.
Willow Ufgood here is terrified that one day he'll be discovered as the aging, talentless hack that he really is.
And it really makes me wonder, with all these repeated terrible decisions, the conversations that Jennifer Sulky is even having in Amazon in the first place to make them. Why is there no voice of reason? Why is there no money man inside Amazon Studios telling her she's being an idiot? Why does it take the CEO to come in and start asking questions before sanity kicks in and you stop caring about people's feelings? This is business. How you feel about it is irrelevant, because there's a problem in your company if you're making bad decisions but no one lower down will actually tell you the truth about them. There's a problem when the Hollywood Reporter can find multiple insiders to come out and absolutely trash you as a leader and point out all your mistakes and say they disagreed with them, but they're not telling you. If they're not telling you, you're the reason for it. Is it because you can't handle criticism and would fire them? Are they just scared of you in your position because you haven't told them that they can be honest with you? Or is it that you wouldn't listen to them and so there's absolutely no point? Because there was one standout comment from Jennifer Sulky when it came to Rings of Power, the show that not only had a poor completion rate, but won no major awards either, and was overlooked by all the major guilds except the actors one, who had a single nomination for Stunt Ensemble, which, as I've said, if you want prestige, then awards are actually what they're after. That would explain why the series was trying to be so faux intellectual and arty. All those sentences that didn't actually make sense if you thought about them, but were supposed to confuse you enough that you thought they were intelligent. The rock sinks because it looks downwards. Can't believe you didn't get an Oscar for that one. Either way, according to Sulky, the series worked. This desire to paint the show as anything less than a success is not reflective of any conversation I'm having internally. Why? Because that should be the only conversation you're having internally. Every single meeting should be revolving around that sole point. Get your audience groups out, your focus groups, your data. Listen to people who spoke about the show, who pointed out the flaws in it. There was enough of them, just pick one. I mean, even The Guardian started shilling this show to an absurd degree. The Rings of Power is so astounding, it makes House of the Dragon look amateur, which later turned into, now it's over, let's come out and say it, Rings of Power was a stinker. And look, it can't all be just because they were offended by bad Irish accents, especially when those were also contained in the original review. When even your greatest shills are coming out and going, okay, we can't spin this mess. You are not bragging to saying, well, we're just not listening to those, we're not having conversations like that, because you should be. And if you're not, that's a sign of severe incompetence. That's a sign of living in a delusional fantasy world. That's a sign that you're not running a business, you're just caring more about people's feelings.
Wait, no!
It's fine if Rings of Power isn't a success. I mean, we're having loads of great conversations about it. We don't feel like that. And as long as everybody's feelings are protected, then it doesn't really matter about the bottom line. There's definitely a difference in viewpoints between the two sides. One cares about feelings and optics and the relationships between different people within the industry. It doesn't matter if the audience wants a thing. Instead, we should represent what they don't want, even if it's finally not successful, because that's a fair and nice thing to do to save people's feelings. And then you've got the other side, the business side, the sensible side, which your leadership should be entirely made up of. The one that comes in and starts asking questions about your numbers. The one that looks at your data, your objective audience scores, and gives people what they want because it makes your business successful. The one who doesn't live in a delusional fantasy world of feelings and lives in reality, where the money exists. It's irrelevant what conversations you're having internally at your company. It only matters if those conversations reflect reality. That's why they needed someone to come in who didn't care about the executives, didn't care about who was in charge, because he had more power. I'm gonna look at your spending, and if it doesn't make sense, then it's gone. I don't care about your feelings, or what kind of PR disaster you're gonna try and set us up with. Your show was trash, and it didn't make any money. Goodbye. That's how adults conduct themselves in business. But it's not how Hollywood has been conducting themselves, caring too much about people's egos, the money, the relationships between them. Oh, we can't offend this person. We've got to make a show about this, even though that's for an entirely niche audience that won't make any money. Why is there a backlash for Snow White not being anything like Snow White? Don't you understand? If Snow White had looked like the character, that would have been offensive and hurt people's feelings. We had to get somebody else in. We had to represent somebody else to save their feelings instead. That's what most of this comes down to. It's simply an emotional argument that somebody somewhere might be hypothetically upset if they haven't seen themselves. But the real leaders, the adults, the businessmen in the room, they don't care about anything like that. If you're offended, you need to grow up or piss off. And in a time when money runs out, there is no other option but to get those people involved, because they're the only ones with the balls to do what should have been done in the first place. And tell people who start insulting the audience by being concerned that they've got bias built into the system because it cares about what the audience actually wants, where exactly they can shove it and how far it needs to go. But the really interesting thing is if asking questions has already caused two things to get cancelled, when exactly is the person who wasted all this money to begin with going to be held accountable for doing so? In the past 9 months, the streaming service has released at least half a dozen pricey series that failed to connect with domestic audiences. If you need someone to come in because the leader just cares about things which are all going to destroy a business, then why are you allowing them to make those decisions in the first place? Or at the very least, you have to institute someone above them who can actually counter those decisions with rationality, data, money, logic, and the relentless message that I don't care about what you are, I care about how successful of a product that you can make. I care about the audience and you giving them exactly what they want, rather than what you think they need, or even worse, what you would personally like at their expense. But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video, subscribe for more videos like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.